Imagine tomorrow they'll come and tell us it's war. Do we, the people, have the courage to say no and stand up for freedom and peace? My name is Gesa and I'm making this comment in German and English language because I think we're facing a global danger. What's happening in Germany right now could also happen in a similar way in other countries too and harm even more people. The situation in Germany is on a new extreme level regarding the narrative of war. I'm saying the narrative of war because it reminds me of a novel from George Orwell, 1984, in which the narrative of war is used as a tool for control. War is used as a tool for control the people. And it's no joke that our Minister of Economics, Robert Habeck, has literally written the foreword of the new translated edition of 1984. Somehow an Orwellian nightmare. But, similar as in this novel, we in Germany have installed new rules, new law for the case of war. And the most famous German newspaper, the Bild-Zeitung, which makes so much propaganda about war since the last weeks or a month, they also pointed out the most important points of this new law, which I would like to read out briefly in a translated version, because it can be absolutely crucial to understanding what is already initiated without the consent of the people. The article was called Food Bunkers Combat Duty. Government issues new plan in the event of war. What all Germans would have to do if Russia attacked. Kremlin dictator Vladimir Putin repeatedly threatens to escalate the war in Ukraine and to attack the West, including Germany. It's a media one-way street. Defense Minister Boris Pistorius demanded only on Wednesday, "We must be ready for war by 2029. Then Putin could attack." This means that Germany must arm itself. I wonder, how do they know already the date? So it's like 5 years in the future. Do they want to keep the people 5 years in fear and have this narrative all the time? Or what is the plan behind that? And how do they know when it will happen? The German government has now presented its new war plan for this, the Framework Directive on Total Defense from 1989, which has now been updated. It set out which rules apply and which actions are to be taken in a war. And that's what I'm going to read out now. If attacks occur in many places at the same time, people cannot count on immediate help from the state everywhere. They must therefore be prepared to help themselves first. When the attack begins, the federal government issues a warning via the modular warning system. The message spreads like lightning via radio, internet and apps. So I think it's no coincidence that the supermarket chain Aldi has now an offer for emergency cranking radios. Bunker. Basement rooms and solid construction, underground car parks or subway stations are to be used as temporary bunkers. This is because the attacks can take place, sometimes even with extremely short warning times, and are therefore a particular challenge. War and fear are used as a tool for control. While Germany defends itself, the Bundestag may not dissolve itself. That's interesting. And some cities have already written this information on their websites because there would be Bundestag elections in autumn 2025. But maybe there will not be any elections. And what's also interesting is that we have simultaneously elections in Great Britain, in France, in Belgium, and of course the USA this year. So it seems like they have coordinated the same government, period. The media are ordered to broadcast important announcements, for example, laws or information, without delay. What's also in the law but not written in this newspaper article is there must not be any alternative information about the war. So it's forbidden to write something else because it could harm, of course. And so I think we're somehow give rise to a new Orwellian Ministry of Truth. The state is dependent on reliable communication systems for classified information. In other words, special technology is to be used to ward off espionage attacks, which reminds us maybe on Julian Assange, who is also arrested because of espionage, somehow, from the inside. The authorities can order evacuations in contested areas. Families should not be separated. In my other words, expropriation, the great taking. It's a perfect reason for the you will own nothing scenario, to tell them it's war and they have to leave their houses and maybe they will never return. And that is exactly what David Rogers Webb has written in his book, The Great Taking, in German, Die große Enteignung, where he informed the people that there are already these laws for making the great taking or the you will own nothing scenario real. So that might be a perfect reason for it, for the outside. Hospitals should prepare for a sudden large number of patients over a longer period of time. There shall also be a big hospital at Ramstein Air Base in Germany, which would be the largest US hospital outside of the USA and shall be ready until 2027. It's just one example of many. So it's really, they are doing these things already. Veterinary officers should draw up plans to prevent the outbreak of animal diseases. We already are used to these diseases, I think. It's now the bird flu, and they're killing so many birds and also cattle and cows. So that could also lead us to the next point. In the event of war, Germany is threatened with a supply crisis. For example, for fruits and vegetables and meat. The Ministry of Food can therefore ration the distribution of food. The supply crisis is already created when there are so many animals killed pointlessly. And on the other result would be that the farmers are weakened. The federal government stores wheat, rye and oats in secret locations. There is also an emergency reserve, rice, pulses, condensed milk, to provide the population with one hot meal a day for a certain period of time, especially in urban areas. So again, we might be supplied with food that's not good for us and not healthy. Delivery of spare parts for military vehicles have priority over other goods. Authorities can oblige companies to only produce goods for defense purposes. And that reminds me of the poem I read as a New Year's speak, which is from Wolfgang Borchardt, and would be called in English somehow then like there's only one thing to do. And one quote is, "You, man at the machine and man in the workshop, if tomorrow they order you to stop making water pipes and cooking pots, but steel helmets and machine guns, then there's only one thing to do. Say no." If there's a threat of shortages of goods, the Ministry of Economy can set prices and introduce ration coupons. Welcome to the new normal. So, compare the great taking, die große Enteignung. What do you do when your money is not worth anything anymore? And what do you do if you have to behave in a proper way to get such a ration coupon? Private companies must provide their trucks and IT infrastructure to the military in an urgent situation. Expropriation, the great taking. To prevent epidemics, garbage collection should also be carried out during the war. So the narrative of pandemic is also played. Emergency supplies of drinking water should also be kept in stock. The same applies to extinguishing water. Tanks and troop vehicles have priority on roads and railways. Normal traffic can therefore be restricted. Buses, subway trains and trains can also be stopped and air traffic can be suspended. In other words, no more freedom of travel. Huh? Even without the WHO contract, people can be prevented from entering or leaving their country. Railway bridges are to be specially protected. Equipment is to be made available to build temporary bridges over rivers. Weather services are no longer allowed to report on the weather in extreme cases for safety reasons. In the event of war, mandatory military services for citizens is revived. This means that citizens can be drafted at any time. This is already in the making.
Also werden diese 400.000 einen Fragebogen bekommen. Sie werden verpflichtet werden, soweit sie junge Männer sind, diesen auszufüllen. Dazu wird es eine entsprechende gesetzliche Verpflichtung geben, die wir in das Wehrpflichtgesetz schreiben.
So there's so much propaganda and they're really trying to mobilize especially the youth.
Ich würde mich nicht davor fürchten, sag ich jetzt mal, in den Krieg zu gehen. Natürlich, ich habe Respekt davor, es ist schlimme Zeiten dort, aber es ist jetzt kein wirklicher Negativpunkt, dass man natürlich in der Bundeswehr in den Krieg ziehen würde, weil, ich sag mal, das gehört dazu.
The employment agency can oblige citizens aged 18 or over to work in certain jobs, for example, care, post office, bakeries. It can also prohibit people from quitting their jobs in these areas. Working on Sundays and public holidays must also be accepted. Even if you don't use a weapon, you make yourself guilty if you work for war. Doctors, psychologists, nurses and vets, among others, should be divided between the armed forces and civil society in the event of war. You doctor at the bedside, if tomorrow they order you to certify the men as fit for war, then there's only one thing to do. Say no. Telephone lines can be restricted if the Bundeswehr needs them. So, communication could become difficult if we do not network locally and try to find some areas in which we meet us as people. So imagine tomorrow they come and tell us it's war. And nobody goes, because we, the people, have the courage to say no and stand up for freedom and peace. Thank you.